Fake tweets from hijacked news accounts mark U.S. presidential transition. BankBot Android Trojan evolves, and Skyfin will quietly buy stuff you don't want from the Google Play Store. An ill-named Dharma ransomware hits an Indian pony site. Lloyds Bank discloses DDoS attacks. The SEC looks at Yahoo's breach disclosure record, and the FBI is taking an interest in the gentleman Krebs fingered as Mirai's master. It's time to take a moment to tell you about our sponsor, Cybersex Jobs. If you're an information security professional seeking your next career or your first career, check out cybersecjobs.com and find your future. Cybersex Jobs is a veteran-owned career site and job fair company for information security professionals and students. Job seekers can create a profile, upload their resume, and search and apply for thousands of jobs. And it's great for recruiters, too. If you're an employer looking to source information security professionals, contact Cybersex Jobs about their flexible recruitment packages designed to meet your needs. To learn more, visit cybersecjobs.com. That's cybersecjobs.com. And we thank Cybersex Jobs for sponsoring our show. Major funding for the CyberWire podcast is provided by Cylance. I'm Dave Bittner in Baltimore with your CyberWire Summary for Monday, January 23, 2017. Both the New York Times and the BBC had their Twitter accounts hijacked recently. The Times hijackers yesterday tweeting falsely that Russian President Putin had intentions to launch missiles against the U.S., and the BBC's hijackers tweeting Friday, equally falsely, that U.S. President Trump had been wounded in an assassination attempt during his inauguration. Protection racketeers at OurMine admit collaborating in the caper, but said their unnamed partners composed the tweets. OurMine has become well known for its shakedown operations. They seek to preserve an implausible illusion of legitimacy as a security auditing service, but as may be seen in the Hills account, as in others, few, if any, buy this. OurMine seems today to be distancing itself from both incidents, disavowing responsibility for the tweets, and suggesting to the BBC that OurMine's hacking was only coincidental with the bogus news stories. Still, they're offering their services, as in this note to the New York Times. Quote, "Message from OurMine to @NYTvideo. Contact us to tell you how to fix the issue." End quote. The week opens with news of fresh Android threats. Tripwire is following the progress of recently discovered banking Trojan BankBot, which is built to loot bank accounts by exploiting admin privileges on Android phones. BankBot source code has begun circulating on at least one criminal hacking forum. Dr. Webb has also identified a new Android threat. They're calling this one Skyfin. It's a second-stage infection that so far has been observed in phones already compromised by the Android downloader malware family. Skyfin quietly infests a device's local Play Store app to make unwanted purchases. The SANS Internet Storm Center has a rundown on Sage 2.0, a variant of CryLocker first described by Bleeping Computer last month. Sage 2.0 ransomware is now being observed in spam, hitherto associated with Cerber. So again, the criminal markets are showing their propensity for evolution and adaptation. Specific ransomware victims late last week include the St. Louis, Missouri, USA Public Library System and the RacingPulse.in pony betting site operating out of Bangalore, India. The Dharma ransomware strain hit Bangalore. There's no word yet on which variety affected St. Louis. The St. Louis librarians aren't paying up. Instead, they're wiping and restoring the approximately 700 affected machines. That won't be cheap or pain-free, and it will in fact take a few days to accomplish, but the librarians are determined to hang tough. Last week, Google released an open-source prototype of a system for discovering and verifying public encryption keys called Key Transparency. For details, we checked in with Professor Matthew Green, cryptographer from Johns Hopkins University.
We've known for a long time that one of the vulnerabilities in encrypted messaging systems is that they use key servers, or at least many of the commercial ones do. So what that means is that if you want to talk to somebody, the first thing you have to do is you have to get their public key. In the olden days, when we did that with things like PGP, it was a very painful process. We used to have to go, have key signing parties and, go to key servers and do all of this stuff. all of these newer instant messaging systems have gotten so easy to use, and they've done that mostly by making that transparent. So you don't know that you're getting somebody's public key, but you're still doing that. And that means you're relying on some server somewhere to hand you the right public key and not give you the wrong one. And that's a vulnerability, or that's a potential vulnerability in many of these apps.
And so take us through how key transparency is addressing that situation.
Well, so two bad things can happen to you if you trust somebody else's key server. So a person can break into the key server, and they can, actually give out the wrong public keys to people so that people are encrypting to the bad guy instead of to you. The other thing that people can do is they can impersonate your SMS, and they could register a phone to your account, or even add another phone to your account if they guess your iCloud password. And so that's the problem that key transparency tries to deal with. Many services will tell you, they'll send a message to your phone or something when that happens, but there's nothing guaranteed about that. If somebody hacks the server, they can prevent that message from getting to you. Key transparency takes this kind of a big step further. And what it does is it basically produces a cryptographic proof that your phone can check, which proves that the key the server is giving out to people is actually the key that you want it to be. It's actually your public key. So your phone and other people's phones can actually check that the server is behaving honestly.
And so what are the likely areas where we're going to see this put to practical use?
Well, I think the first place we're going to see this is in instant messaging systems, hopefully very soon. So the original key transparency project was created at Google and I think at Yahoo because Google and Yahoo were working together on this E2E plugin for mail, both Gmail and for Yahoo. Unfortunately, that project hasn't really produced a whole lot. We just still don't have, a production version of the E2E plugin. So the key transparency server, which is now open source, hopefully will be adopted somewhere that's, that where it can actually make a difference. And the places where it can make a difference are in encrypted messaging apps like Signal or WhatsApp. We haven't seen anyone adopt it yet, but hopefully that's on the way.
So this is a 1.0 release. Are there any serious limitations that you see so far?
So I haven't gone through the code, in a lot of detail. I know the people who wrote it. I know the basic design. The big question for me is, can it plug into, other people's infrastructure, particularly the database backend, and work efficiently? I think we're going to have to see about that. I don't have the tools here in my professor's office to, test it at the scale of 1 billion people. I think that's going to be an interesting problem.
That's Matthew Green from Johns Hopkins University. In industry news, it appears that the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission is taking a close look at what some consider Yahoo's belated disclosure of its 2 major data breaches. The Lloyds Banking Group disclosed that it was affected by a distributed denial of service campaign 2 weeks ago. An unnamed international cybercrime gang is said to be responsible. Disruptions occurred intermittently over a 2-day period. Several observers are reminded of the earlier attack on Tesco's banking operations in the UK. We heard from Ilya Kolichenko, CEO of High-Tech Bridge, who strongly urges the victim and the authorities to conduct a quick and thorough investigation. That investigation should bear in mind, Kolichenko says, that DDoS campaigns often serve as misdirection for other, more serious attacks. Kolichenko points out, quote, DDoS attacks are quite simple to organize but very difficult and expensive to mitigate. At the end of last year, even Akamai was obliged to terminate its DDoS protection services for U.S. journalist and investigative reporter Brian Krebs' website, following ongoing and massive DDoS attacks against it, end quote. Akamai is a leading distributed denial of service protection vendor. And speaking of DDoS and connected IoT services, the FBI is reported to be interviewing the gentleman security journalist Brian Krebs, as identified as the figure behind Mirai. Mirai, of course, is the botnet herding malware used to clog the internet last fall. If you haven't read Krebs on Security's long account of how he tracked the spoor of the attacker, you should consider doing so. It's an interesting and dismaying story. It also offers a surprising window into the highly competitive world of Minecraft servers and the protection thereof. As is the case with any business highly dependent on availability, a distributed denial of service campaign against Minecraft servers or the vendors who support them with DDoS protection can have financially devastating, perhaps business-killing results. And it's precisely this vulnerability, Krebs believes, that Mirai's creator and controller was out to exploit, hoping to establish either a competing service or a protection racket. It's also interesting in that the person the FBI is said to be interested in is not a state security service conducting a dry run, or even a well-resourced organized gang of criminals expanding their attack portfolio. Instead, it looks like a guy in a New Jersey dorm room. We won't share the person of interest's name, but we can say this: it's not Anna Senpai. And for you Minecraft fans, it's not Steve either. Time for a message from our sponsor, E8 Security, and let me ask you a question. Do you fear the unknown? Lots of people do, of course. The creeper, the snow ghost, stuff like that. But we're not talking about those. We're talking about real threats, unknown unknowns lurking in your networks. The good people at E8 have a white paper on hunting the unknowns with machine learning and big data analytics that go beyond the old school signature matching and human watch standing. Go to e8security.com/DHR and download their free white paper, Detect, Hunt, Respond. It describes a fresh approach to the old problem of recognizing and containing a threat no one's ever seen before. The known unknowns, like Redbeard's ghost or the Puppet Master, they're nothing compared to the unknown unknowns out there in the wild. See what E8's got to say about them. e8security.com/DHR and check out the white paper. And we thank E8 for sponsoring our show. And I'm pleased to be joined once again by Jonathan Katz. He's a professor of computer science at the University of Maryland and also director of the Maryland Cybersecurity Center. Jonathan, I wanted to check in with you. I know there is concern that as we head towards post-quantum cryptography, that there are a variety of schemes that people are working on to try to take us past that hurdle. And one of them that I've heard about is called multivariate cryptography. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, right. As you said, people are very concerned about the advent of quantum computers. We don't know when exactly they're going to become a reality, but people are speculating that they may be deployed in about 20 or 30 years. And because of that, we need to start preparing now. As you know, and as many of the listeners probably know, all the common public key cryptography used today is based on either factoring or this so-called discrete logarithm problem. And both of those are known to be solvable efficiently by quantum computers. So basically all the current public key crypto on the internet would be broken if and when we do get quantum computers. And people are looking for, as you said, post-quantum crypto replacements that would be secure even against those computers. So people have been looking at a wide variety of different problems, and these multivariate crypto systems are one among several possibilities that people are looking at.
So take us through what's going on mathematically under the hood when it comes to multivariate cryptography.
Well, as you can imagine, it's hard to give the full details, but just to give an idea of the problem essentially boils down to finding solutions to polynomial equations. So imagine that you're given 10, 20 different quadratic equations in many variables, not in a single variable like back in high school, but these are in many variables, and you're asked to find a set of solutions that will simultaneously satisfy all the given equations. Now, it's known actually that problem is NP hard in general, so we don't expect there to be a polynomial time algorithm or an efficient algorithm for ever solving that. Of course, that doesn't yet mean that it's ready for cryptographic applications, and there's been a lot of work to try to take that problem and map it and derive crypto systems from it.
So when it comes to this post-quantum cryptography problem, is it kind of a race against time?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the things that's been interesting here is if you think about it, step back and think about it, you think that quantum computers are maybe 30 years off, so we have time to prepare. But then you look actually at how long the process of research and standardization takes, and you realize that actually if we want something to be in place in 25 to 30 years, we really need to get started in the next 5 or 10 years of having things that we can actually imagine standardizing and then rolling out to the internet. So we don't really have as much time as we might hope.
Jonathan Katz, thanks for joining us. And that's the CyberWire. Thanks to all of our sponsors who make the CyberWire possible, and special thanks to our sustaining sponsor, Cylance. Learn more about how Cylance prevents cyber attacks at cylance.com. The CyberWire podcast is produced by Pratt Street Media. Our editor is John Petrick. Our social media editor is Jennifer Iben, and our technical editor is Chris Russell. Our executive editor is Peter Kilpie, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening.